I'm Rob Clementi, the Chief Executive of TEN, the Education Network. And in this edition of Tax Bites and Law Bites, we're doing them together, I've got with me James Gapici, a director of Chamberlains. He's one of our regular presenters. And most importantly, from the point of view of this little discussion, he has a substantial presence on social media. James, welcome. What advice would you give to professionals aspiring to develop a social media presence?
I think I'd encourage them just to think about taking little baby steps, little preliminary steps. So we've got a huge diverse range of platforms available to us as professionals. And we might say, oh, shall I do a dance on TikTok, or shall I record a 45-minute CLE for YouTube? Well, that's when we can often get our heads a bit caught up with all the various options. What I'd encourage any professional thinking about whether this is for them to think about is just taking a little baby step in that direction. And one of the easiest places to do that, I'd suggest, would be LinkedIn, where you may well be connected with other professionals in your sphere or referral sources or clients. And from time to time, they'll publish something where you might say, oh, well, that's a bit interesting. And, the first time you click that like button, there's a little bit of a deep intake of breath or something like that. And that is an act of publishing. That's your first step into publishing on social media. So once you've sort of swallowed your pride to click that like button, your next step a week later perhaps is to leave a little comment. Great article, Julie. Thanks for sharing it. And then perhaps a couple of weeks after that, you might find yourself in a position to share one yourself. G'day, everyone. This is an interesting article in the AFR you might find. And just drip, 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 taking those little small steps. And gradually you'll find yourself in a place where you'll develop some confidence with your publishing. The one other piece of advice I'd offer, as my wife wandered in there to grab a jacket and then wandered back out of the room, is that perfection can be the enemy of the good. So there can be a typo in your tweet. There can be an error in your LinkedIn post where you misdescribe a director or an office holder as a shareholder, something like that. It's going to happen. Beneficiaries magically become trustees in blog posts and then are edited back a day or two later. It happens all the time. So I'd encourage anyone here watching Law Bites or Tax Bites to think about taking one of those preliminary little steps of a little like or a little comment or indeed a little share, but also being gentle with yourself if a little typo creeps in the gremlins between your fingertips and the published online world.
James, one thing that occurred to me while you were talking is to ask you, apart from LinkedIn, what other platforms really suit tax professionals or lawyers?
Yes. It's difficult to narrow it down. And so my blunt answer is whatever the tax professional likes. There are some extremely effective tax accounts on TikTok. And one of the reasons for that is that TikTok has a fabulous question and answer sort of interface. And so someone might get asked a very specific question about the Income Tax Assessment Act and section blah of that and the impact of some structure. And in a 45-second to 60-second reply, perhaps with an image to assist, you can actually produce a very good piece of content. But I think my direct advice would be LinkedIn is more or less the first port of call for any professionals, I think, thinking about it. TikTok worth considering. Although if you're a visual person, you can think about a lot of good tax accountants find themselves on Instagram, and their content will include the sort of structuring diagrams, Rob, that you and I have been staring at for the last few decades. And will sometimes include a little slice of life, including a slice of their professional life. And so a tax professional might see fit to perhaps sketch out a simple structure in one post, perhaps offer a bit of advice in writing in another post, and then potentially a photograph of the office or, a photograph enjoying a cup of coffee with a client or some broader insight into professional life. I think my real advice on that point would be professionals should publish where they feel comfortable. And in my experience, that's professionals often feel most comfortable publishing on the website they're most likely to use in their professional world. And that'll end up being LinkedIn, but there are other options out there.
James, thank you very much. Fascinating advice. Very interesting to talk to you, and perhaps we'll have a further discussion about it in the near future.
I'll look forward to it, Rob. Thanks for having me.